Wow, an actual partner to discuss things with.
How do you do?
Okay. I have to admit, I was listening to my favorite hate watch, Persian language, Iran regime uh, streamer,
Uh-huh.
and he tried this thing where he's in London, and they tried to have a pro regime demonstration. Uh, they did it on Nowruz, which is smart because that's the only day they're not going to get counter demonstrators come and completely overwhelm them. Anyway, he found somebody to talk to, and he decided to bring her onto his stream. And when he had to mute her, you muted yourself, sir.
I'm not sure I follow. What's funny about it?
He couldn't let her speak. He had to mute her.
And so who's coming from which perspective? I sort of got my wires crossed trying to follow that.
Okay, so the guy that I'm watching, a pro regime streamer,
all right,
who tried to find a non-professional pro regime speaker at the demonstration to bring onto his channel for a stream.
Okay.
And he ended up having to mute her because she wasn't following his script. And when I saw that, it was like, apparently Iran has fired missiles in our general direction. Can you believe it?
Sounds like a Monty Python skit, like in the U.S.'s general direction.
Well, okay. So they actually hit the town of Dimona in Israel, which is honestly, like, it's kind of like, let's say you're playing basketball with your 4-year-old and your 4-year-old hits the rim.
But they've hit some actual stuff in Israel, right? Over the past couple weeks.
Military targets?
No, I mean like civilian stuff or
right. They've hit civilian stuff.
Yeah.
Right. They have accomplished zero military anything in Israel.
That's actually a good point that I've never really thought of before.
Or in Diego Garcia.
Yeah.
No. I mean, look, they're not actually accomplishing any military objective whatsoever. Right? And frankly, the Strait of Hormuz thing, I mean, we can talk about it, but like, they're seriously pissing off all their neighbors, and frankly, probably China and India. Curiously, I don't know how mad India is, because Saudi Arabia, I was surprised. Saudi Arabia sent a representative to the CBC, Canadian Broadcast Corporation, to basically talk about how they might be attacking Iran, and if they do, Pakistan will come in on their side. Yeah.
So what happens next? Because part of me will admit I didn't expect the Iranian regime to have this much fight in them, but I'm not quite sure.
It's an apocalyptic cult. What do you think? They would just go home?
Well, maybe that they would die, or not that they would lose control. Uh, and
Lose control is still somewhat of a possibility. So I was okay. So yesterday was Nowruz. I was hoping that uh, this would be over by Nowruz, and frankly, I think even if today Israel and the United States said, "Okay, we're done. We're going home," right? We're unilaterally, we've done as much damage as we intend to do. I have to tell you, it looks like we're actually going to take Kharg Island.
I've heard that. But here's the thing. So we take Kharg Island, which, as from what I understand, Iran doesn't have a lot of good ports on their coastline where big boats could actually land and refuel or take on large amounts of cargo. But there's this island off the coast of Iran that you can build some good ports into. And so a lot of the oil and gas pipelines from Iran's oil fields go to this island, and then the tankers go to this island and get filled up, and that's their.
Iran has two major ports. One is Bandar Abbas. That's like its major port. And as far as exporting oil, they export the oil from Kharg Island.
Mm-hmm.
But Bandar Abbas, which is right next to Hormuz, is the main port, and in terms of commerce, that's what it goes.
Yeah, but a lot of the oil and gas goes out through the island.
Yes, 90% of the gas goes out through Kharg Island.
Yeah.
And Donnie says Tucker is going to start a Chabad house on Kharg Island. I could believe it.
So what? My best analogy for what's happening is we decapitated an octopus, and the tentacles have a little bit of brain in the tentacles, and they're sort of squirming and flailing, and they can last for longer than you might think without the head of the octopus, but they can't last for forever. And that various branches of the Iranian military are sort of acting autonomously or semi-independently in firing these missiles and making threats and doing all that sort of thing. But I don't know if
it's. I don't like that analogy. How much Kareem Sajidpour do you listen to?
None.
I recommend him, despite the fact that he's basically a Democrat. He is a Democrat, but he's a Democrat who actually knows Iran and understands what's going on. So what he says isn't as ridiculous as what most Democrats say. What he said a while ago and holds true is about a year ago, before the 12-Day War, he wrote an article for, I believe, for The Atlantic, I forget where he wrote 7 scenarios for what's going to come after the Islamic regime, because the Islamic regime is, in his terms, a zombie regime walking. And he wrote this like over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think even a year ago, it was kind of obvious that the Islamic regime, it's a zombie. The question is, what's going to happen next?
It's a hard thing to kill a zombie, though, because it's already dead.
Yeah, and an apocalyptic zombie that doesn't care for self-preservation, and Iran is a much mightier country than most people give it credit for. They
Yeah.
don't really understand that Iran is not a developing nation, it's a developed nation.
And it's also the size of like the entire Midwest.
Right. And it has abundant resources. And it's not just natural resources, but also abundant human resources.
Yeah. And it's got formidable borders. It's not like we can just sail some boats right off the coast of Iran, fly in some helicopters, send some special forces around and pull back out like we
Well,
could
what
with Venezuela.
the special forces stuff, honestly, I think GPS has way changed how hard special forces were, because Bay of Pigs repeated itself in 1979 when the United States tried to pull some special forces stuff. Now it's a question of, what are you going to have your special forces do?
Yeah. But it's still hard to fly a helicopter all the way to Tehran from somewhere safe to launch from.
A helicopter, yeah, but honestly, I I would be shocked if Israel doesn't have safe houses in Tehran. I know for a fact Israel has safe houses in Tehran.
Yeah, but you get my point. Like in Venezuela, we could park a whole bunch of military hardware a short 10-15 minute flight from Caracas.
That's not the problem. I don't think that's I don't think that's the problem here. The you have a much what's his name? Maduro, all of his guards were from Cuba.
Yeah.
Khamenei, his guards are like
they're all from Israel, right?
They all believe he is the representative of God on earth. Ayatollah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That is a completely other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are these 7 scenarios of what could happen next, and what do you think's likely?
So I didn't actually read his 7 scenarios, but the reason he brought it up is for space reasons. They made him cut it down to 5, and one of the things they cut out was Pahlavi coming back. And the reason he brought it up is, like, I could have had an article that said Pahlavi is coming back. I would have been the only one. They cut it out. The fact is, before the massacres in January, I still, like, Pahlavi going back is a long shot, but it's now a Hail Mary long shot as opposed to, that's never ever going to happen one.
Okay.
The massacres, people are underestimating the impact the massacres have had in delegitimizing the Islamic regime. Like, there are millions of people who previously were like, this is the government we have, who are now saying, no, this government must go.
Mm-hmm. So how would Pahlavi even work?
Good question.
Right, like, what? So it's the Hail Mary. We're in the huddle. Like, what lines do we draw on our playboard that Hail Mary plan even has a path of success? How does he get in charge? How does he have forces that listen to him? How does he deal with insurgent forces, either loyal to the regime or ethnic breakaways or just bandits of various kinds? How would he actually be in control of the country?
Okay, so apparently one thing that's going on is Israel is calling mid-level Besiege, Artesh, and IRGC officials and saying, okay, are you going to agree to work with us, or do we have to get rid of you? Mossad is not incompetent. It is not impossible for Artesh, which is the regular conscript military in Iran,
that predates the Islamic regime.
yes, and that the IRGC was created in order to
Counterbalance.
to kind of keep in check, right?
Yeah.
It is not impossible for the Artesh to somewhat defect.
Yeah.
Is it likely? Close to zero.
Mm-hmm.
It's not impossible. That's one thing. There are Arab tribes in southwestern Iran, around Bandar Abbas,
Yeah.
who feel closer to the GCC than they feel to Iran.
What's GCC?
Oh, the Gulf GCC, what, Gulf Coast
Coalition.
something like that. GCC.
It means basically Bahrain and the Arab Emirates and Kuwait and maybe Arabia and
Gulf. The Cooperation Council of the Arab States of the Gulf, also known as the Gulf Cooperation Council, is a regional intergovernmental political and economic union and military alliance comprising Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates.
All right. Well, I made a pretty good guess then.
Yeah. So there are definitely, I mean, I don't know why I didn't realize this before, but like basically Iran is occupying Iran, the United Arab Emirates, like there are Iranians who are like, oh, you're just a breakaway country we should annex. Mm-hmm. Right? And so this is the thing. Pahlavi is insisting on national integrity. A lot of Iranians are insisting on national integrity. Personally, and I think a lot of people in the in the administration are not as committed to Iran's national integrity.
What's Israel's opinion on the matter?
Israel, my thinking is probably Bibi would not mind at all an independent Kurdistan. In Iran, I still think, I mean, this is part of the problem. The Kurds are the only ones with a real military. But Turkey would lose its shit. Syria,
Iraq,
maybe. Iraq would lose its shit. And I don't think Russia would be happy either. So, like, and probably, I mean, the other regional powers probably wouldn't be happy either. I'm not sure Saudi Arabia would be happy.
So one path you're saying is Iran disintegrates and there's like some Azerbaijanis in the north, some Kurds, maybe some Arabs along the coast, probably some, like, what are they called, Balochis or
Yep.
something in the southeast, maybe
Mhm.
like some Turkmens up by Turkmenistan, right? And that various bites get taken out of Iran, and they start to either form semi-autonomous states or just full-blown de facto.
The problem is that the Kurd, like, if the Kurdish lands were and the Bandar Abbas, the Arab lands, weren't so resource rich,
Yeah.
maybe that would be acceptable. But yeah, like, that would completely impoverish the rest of Iran if
Yeah.
if
And it would lead to low-level civil wars or outright wars for a long time, probably.
yeah. Yep.
And that would maybe be like, well, Iran can't fight anyone else if they're fighting themselves. But it would probably not be as I think both the US and Israel and a lot of other countries would prefer a coherent, integrated Iran that had an acceptable leadership.
The United States, well, that had an acceptable leadership, yes.
Yeah.
But like, do they prefer the current situation or Iran falling apart? The people who, the reasonable people who hate Israel, are like, Israel is just causing chaos. They want Iran to disintegrate. And frankly, there are definitely people in Israel who are like, you know what?
Maybe we don't even need an omelet. All we need are some cracked eggs.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It's like, just as long as you're not bothering me, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right?
And you had to come in and you sort of asked for it and all those sorts of, yeah.
So I keep on obsessing on two facts nobody pays attention to. One of them is the recent UN Security Council resolution. And the other is the fact that in January, the Trump administration named as the head of the Voice of America, Persian, Baloch, and Kurdish service a man who doesn't merely detest Pahlavi, doesn't somebody who has been over the past 20 years one of the great opponents of Pahlavi among the opposition to the regime. He's a Kurdish separatist, although he says he's not.
And so the Kurdish separatists don't want Pahlavi because Pahlavi and the Shah before him were kind of a multi-ethnic but Persian supremacist greater Iran sort of thing.
So Reza Shah saw what Ataturk, Kemal Ataturk did in Turkey and went, yeah, that's what we need. And many of the monarchists are, I mean, I was listening to this other Persian language show and somebody in the chat asked him, okay, so when we take over, which my dad laughed at, he's like, what do you mean when? If. But when we take over, will it be illegal to wear a chador or a turban? And it's like, these people, like, they really, I mean, these are people who looked up to Kemal Ataturk. And if you know what Kemal Ataturk did in Turkey, and despite the fact it's been a huge disaster and hasn't functioned, they want to make that work both in Turkey and in Iran. And in both places, the result, it's funny, I never even considered this. it was a secularist leftist project that led to reactionary Islamism.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, in the United States, like there's a very similar like attempt to be so secular that you end up with Christian nationalism.
Mm. All right. What are some other scenarios?
So scenarios include Artesh defecting. I don't see that happening. Include I mean, I don't know what the United States is going to. The moral of the story is don't persecute religious people. Religious persecution is a mistake. Unless you can actually murder the entire population, which sometimes works.
I'll agree with the first half of the sentence where you said that religious persecution does not work. Don't do it.
But when you murder like the entire population, it just does work.
Depending on your definition of work, yeah.
You get rid of the religion. Okay, back to the thing. I mean, Iran disintegrating. Pahlavi. I mean, look. What is my hope? Did you hear about the elections for the new prime minister of Nepal that were held on Discord?
Yes.
That's my hope. That is a ridiculous hope. And considering unless, I mean,
Nepal is not completely unlike Iran in that there's one big capital city that has a lot more internet connected people and surrounded by a vast countryside, much of which is shockingly undeveloped. And it's mountainous and it's hard to get around. And there's kind of one main ethnic group, but there's a lot of ethnic minorities around the edges.
I don't know that much about Nepal, but that is a description that fits Iran. Yeah.
And there are messianic hopes where they think certain individuals are unique connections to divinity. Also a thing in Nepal.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
what? I mean, there's a parliament, right?
It's no.
What if Parliament was just still in charge, and then there just wasn't,
No.
You just keep parliamenting.
You misunderstand the role of the parliament in Iran. That's similar to saying there are still city councils in Washington D.C. Why don't they take over?
All right.
I mean, what happened for Red Wednesday? I'll translate. Charshanbe Suri, Red Wednesday, which is the evening before this past Wednesday, was Pahlavi tried to issue a call for people to come out and celebrate the festival. Now, this is a Zoroastrian festival, which officially is allowed in Iran, but the very religious types don't like it. It's kind of like Christmas for the Puritans in early United States.
Sure.
So he told people to celebrate it. I was kind of hoping that the United States and Israel would announce limited limited military operations on that night. Israel apparently, I mean, Netanyahu did make some sort of speech, but it was already like that eve when he did, and the United States didn't acknowledge it at all. And I'm not going to say it was a complete dud, but not a lot. I mean, it wasn't enough that the Iranian regime felt like threatened enough to start to do much about it, and it didn't. It didn't catch fire. Let's put it that way. Okay. Now, apparently, there's a leaked memo from the embassy in Jerusalem, the U.S. embassy in Jerusalem, back to Washington, saying that the Israeli assessment was that if Iranians came out, they would have been slaughtered. And that may be the reason the U.S. and Israel were not as
they didn't want to lead people to their deaths in a situation that wouldn't cause the effect that you might want it to anyway.
Yeah. And
which generally points to the fact that the regime still seems to have enough power to be able to slaughter people or give people the fear that they will be slaughtered.
Well, I mean, they have machine guns.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to be able to get rid of all the people on speedboats and with machine guns. Like this is small arms.
But they're still loyal and coherent enough to do that too.
A solid 10% of Iran's population, which is millions of people, are devout Shia Muslims who believe that they are participating in a apocalyptic possible, future. Like they're as gung-ho as anyone in Moscow is for Doug Wilson and Pete Hegseth. Much more so, in fact. And yeah, that 10% of the population, they're not going anywhere.
and they're still coherent and united enough and well armed enough to be able to and willing to slaughter people that would come out for whatever that holiday was.
Yeah. I mean, people did celebrate the holiday. But my hope is Ayatollah Sistani. Ayatollah Sistani, despite the entire government of the Iranian regime trying to compete with his religious authority, he still is more widely accepted and followed in Iran than the official version of Shia Islam the government pushes. In a very real sense, if you were writing the history of this time, you could compare Khamenei and the supreme leader in Iran to an anti-pope. Because ultimately, the real leader of Shia Islam will always be, well, I can't say always, but certainly for hundreds of years has been and now continues to be the the leader of the Hausa in Najaf, which is in Iraq. You muted yourself again. Have you been hitting the space bar?
Oh, I did hit the space bar. Sorry. So basically what you're saying is there's one alternative is a not so bad Ayatollah.
Ayatollah Sistani does not believe in political authority, and in Iraq has not been exerting his political authority as much as he could, and apparently has zero interest in asserting political authority in Iran. The hope is that Muslim, like the Shiites, might start being more adherent to his view of what is proper behavior for a Shia Muslim. That's the hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's not like he's going to accept to be the whatchamacallit. Another, I mean, possibility kind of is Hassan Khomeini. He's the grandson of the first Ayatollah. Also, we don't actually know if Mojtaba is alive or not.
Mm-hmm.
He may not be. I could certainly believe the possibility that he's not alive.
That brings a whole new meaning to the word zombie regime.
Yeah. And you have to consider the fact that like the dust hasn't settled on lots and lots of people being murdered. Well, I shouldn't call it murdered. Assassinated. And so it's, we don't know what's going to happen in Iran and its zombie regime once the fighting officially stops, and the regime has to go back to, okay, what do we actually do and how do we actually do it? Because honestly, they have no way forward. They don't. So yeah. Polymarket, Iranian leadership regime. Am I going to be surprised by what Polymarket has to say? Polymarket. Mojtaba leaves Iran by April 30th. 8% yes. Reza Pahlavi will lead Iran in 2026. 15% yes. Internet access restored in Iran by April 30th. 16% yes. I don't know what to tell you. When's this Messiah you believe in coming back?
Don't know. Soon.
Soon?
Correct
You sure?
answer is soon.
The answer is soon? Are you sure? You
Correct
guys have been
answer is
saying that for like 2,000 years.
Yeah, that's why the correct answer is always soon.
Is it the correct answer, though?
Yes.
Seems like maybe for the first 1,000 years, you guys could have said in a while.
In the eyes of the Lord, 1,000 days.
Yeah, but even with that, it's been a few days, you know.
2 days. It's only been 2 days.
Yeah.
So when will the US, it seems to me, like hearing you talk, that it's Israel that has a lot more attention span and activity in terms of what's going on. And the US is doing some big stuff, but Israel is really the one doing the small stuff and the highly attention to detail stuff. And that seems like it'll actually stick around with enough patience and longevity to have an effect on the future.
Depends if we take Karg Island. I mean, I don't know. Like, Donald Trump doesn't actually believe in international law. I don't know who's going to stop him from taking Karg Island. It's certainly more likely than him taking Greenland. But, like, are we really going to go back to the colonialism of the Spanish-American War?
It's a fair question. I mean, we have that island down there in the Indian Ocean that they shot at. Although I think that's technically British, but we actually use it. There are a lot of things where we don't need to take it to take it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't officially take things like that, but like apparently he's sending in the Marines. I can't imagine what else he would be sending in the Marines for.
So, like, I'm trying to imagine what this even like means. If we control Iran's main island, which they use to export a good chunk of their energy, it's not like we control the sources of the oil and the gas that flows to Karg Island. That's somewhere on the mainland or in various what do they call them, drill vessels out there in the Gulf. But then Iran can't export it without our approval. So then do we get to like take some cut of the exports or some cut of the payments or control who can buy Iranian oil or not?
Have you heard the latest crazy announcement the Trump administration made that made everyone go, what the?
No.
They announced loosening of sanctions on Iranian oil.
Oh, yeah, I did actually hear that. Yeah.
That's insane. Unless you're signaling something.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to let some of the Iranian oil that's sort of already out there on boats be bought as to not drive energy prices too high. I think it was some sort of, compromise deal. I think I heard the impression that was a lot with India, and that it's not exactly what it sounded like. But we did loosen sanctions on Russian oil for similar reasons.
Yep. Have you met my puppy?
Hi, puppy. What's your puppy's name?
Lucky.
Oh, yeah. I did know that. I mean, I've still told you that I think the main reason why the U.S. is concerned about Iran in general, and that I think is instructive for trying to understand what our actions will be going forward, is that we're mostly trying to take a pawn, not a pawn, I would say something more like a rook or a bishop out of China's control. And that I do think that for the US, the main goal is to prevent a war with China. And the best way to prevent a war with China is to demonstrate that you would win it before it even started. And that China, in order to invade Taiwan and other places from there and beyond, would always be trying to distract the U.S. attention by causing problems in multiple parts of the world simultaneously. And China also always needs energy. They're a huge energy importer. They were buying something like 87% was a statistic I heard of Iran's oil was going to China. And so if you take that away from them, or if you're the intermediary on Karg Island in some sort of sense, then that greatly strengthens your position against China in some future conflict or some future prevented conflict. If they do not have assets in the Middle East and that you're in charge of their energy flows to an even greater degree than we already were, then this is ultimately moving things into our control against China.
I don't know why China doesn't use opportunities like this just to take Taiwan. I really don't.
Well, I think that if they were to try and take Taiwan, like I said, they would cause chaos in Iran. They would cause chaos in Venezuela or Cuba. They would have North Korea start shooting things in various directions and making everybody nervous. And so they would spread the U.S.'s attention in a bunch of different ways so that we couldn't concentrate our attention and our defense on Taiwan. But if they can't control Iran and Iran isn't a threat, then that's one less thing that they can do. And same.
No, but I mean right now. Like if I were
not ready. It takes you to do an amphibious invasion. You need hundreds and hundreds of amphibious boats that are armed and ready to go with soldiers trained to board them and that sort of thing. And they don't have it yet. I mean, even if they said, go take Taiwan as absolutely fast as you can, it would take like 4 months before the first boat was launched. So I think
they can't just like, I don't know, besiege it.
So if they could blockade Taiwan, but then we blockade China, that's the play. All right, you can blockade Taiwan, we'll blockade all of you. And so then it's a nested blockade. And the fact that we just seized I think China's energy, maybe 25% of it came from Iran or something like that. 85% ish of Iranian oil went to China, but that doesn't mean China gets 85% of their oil from Iran. They get it from other places as well, but it was a big chunk. And like I said, they also viewed Iran as a place to create chaos and distraction.
Okay, you convinced me. Don't take Taiwan. I
think that they're going to try, but it'll take a long time to prepare, and it'll be obvious that that's what they're doing.
I think if we take Karg Island, it's going to be in the hopes of a quick resolution where we let Iran have it back, and they promise to leave the Strait of Hormuz open.
Mm-hmm. You also have to remember that Iran imports a whole bunch of food and other just raw materials and goods, and I'm sure like things from toothpaste to toilet paper to car parts to whatever else through the Straits of Hormuz. So if the Straits of Hormuz are closed, their daily living supplies are not getting into the country either. And I don't know how long that they can last without their ability to import through the Straits of Hormuz.
I did not even consider that.
Because Iran, I mean, what percentage of their own food do they even grow? I have to imagine that they rely on imports for a relatively large amount of their calories. And yeah.
I don't know about calories. Because Iran does.
I mean, they do have farms and they do have valleys and stuff like that. But I mean, I got to imagine that they still import a lot of food.
Grok says Iran imports a notable but varying portion of its food needs depending on the metric year and specific commodities. Key data points. Overall food self-sufficiency. Historical claims from Iranian government sources and older reports, 2007-2008, indicate Iran achieved about 96% self-sufficiency in essential agricultural products, meaning roughly 4% imported for those essentials. A 2022 analysis put Iran's cereal import dependency ratio at 36%. Import share of consumption for specific grains, 23% of wheat, 29% for barley, 52% for rice, 71% for corn, although I doubt Iran uses much corn. There's not much corn in Persian cooking. Lots and lots of rice, though.
Yeah, soybeans. I did a similar thing on Gemini.
Mm.
It seems like it would be rough if they couldn't import food. They can import over land, from Iraq or Turkey or whatever.
The real problem is the water crisis.
Yep,
like Yosef said.
Yep, and if you need to be more self-sufficient in food, I assume that would take more water, and they don't have it.
Right, and frankly, the problem of the water problem. I mean, if they weren't using the water for agriculture, they wouldn't have to worry about having water. But Tehran, apparently seriously has a possibility of zero water.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are multiple things that are going to give at some point soon. Like you said, the dust still hasn't settled from all of the decapitations of leading figures,
including Ali Larijani. People don't realize how big it is that they killed Ali Larijani.
I don't know how many more ballistic missiles and Shahed drones they actually have.
Apparently, the Shahed drone, Russia improved it, and it's one of the best drones out there.
Yeah. But how many more do they have? How quickly are we destroying their stockpile?
Apparently, it's pretty cheap to produce Shahed drones.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is apparently something new in warfare. Yeah.
And then I gotta imagine that financially they're really struggling. If they're not able to sell oil, that's got to be a real problem. If they are, struggling to import daily necessities, whether it's food or other common daily needs, that's going to be a real problem. There's the water problem too. I know Trump threatened to start, destroying their power plants or something. I think today, something's going to give pretty soon. So I don't know what that means, but it does seem to me to point into the direction of disintegration of the country.
Yeah. So Max Scorpion asks, why was Larijani a particularly big deal? So part of the thing with decapitating a regime is, if you kill a bunch of our politicians, we have a system for replacing them, right? A dictatorship. You're my old pal Max Betamax. Are you Betamax? I'm guessing this is Betamax. If it's Betamax, you should jump on. Betamax is getting his PhD in music, which should tell you how smart of a man he is.
Foolish and brilliant at the same time, it sounds like.
There's a reason why I call Betamax because we already had a Max in Los Angeles in our group before Betamax showed up. Okay, back to Larjani. So Larjani was the oldest, and what was he? The oldest brother? He was certainly the leading brother among several brothers, right? And having three, or maybe there's four of them. How many Larjani brothers are there? How many Larjani brothers were there? Having several people, so 5 Larjani brothers. Muhammad Javad Larjani, eldest mathematician, former deputy foreign minister, advisor on foreign policy and human rights. Which ones are still alive? Fazil Larjani, involved in diplomatic roles, so he's basically nothing. Ali Larjani, the one who was just killed. Sadiq Larjani, the one who would have become the Ayatollah if the Larjani brothers weren't worried about him being taken out. And Bagher Larjani, who apparently is a physician and works in the health ministry. Muhammad is still alive. Surprised. Okay, so Ali was not the oldest, but he was like the leading brother. And having multiple brothers who work together and their father was an Ayatollah, having multiple brothers who work together in a dictatorship is like, it's glue. It's dictatorship glue. And it makes it possible to actually advance. That's why like tribal affiliation is so important in these types of dictatorships.
It's a trust network.
Yep. And being brothers makes, I mean, as long as you're good brothers, it works, you know?
Did Claire just call me a neocon?
I think she's talking. Oh, yeah, she did.
Neocon.
Claire, Claire, did you go to the protests, the pro-Islamic regime protests in London? Claire is having a meltdown like all the other Islamists I know. And it's a beautiful thing to see. I am not paying attention to you.
Is Netanyahu still alive? Have we gotten proof of life in the last 10 minutes? I don't know. Have you seen him in the last 10 minutes? I haven't.
I haven't, but...
Do you know if he's alive? I haven't heard in the last 30 seconds.
I am 100% sure he's still alive.
I bet he's sleeping pretty nice.
So apparently he's deliberately putting out AI videos of himself just to
troll.
Yeah. Because Netanyahu, he right around election times, he gets the young people's votes by doing stunts like this. Islam without a god is not Islam. Lucky, could you find somebody else to bother? Let me find a toy for this puppy. No, not the squeaky toy.
But anyway, I do get the impression this is taking longer than Trump hoped.
Yeah.
I think that Trump thought that perhaps emboldened by quick success in Venezuela, that if you just killed a bunch of leaders shortly after some protests, protesters would rise up, or some reasonable people that hadn't been killed would rise up, and then you would be able to work with them, and then you would move on to the next project in the next week. And
I'm not sure Trump thought things through as much as all that.
to give Claire's neocon comment its due, I think in many ways this Iran thing had been on the back burner or part of the plan for a long time, predating Trump.
Oh, the military plans are like, they're so old that on the first day we struck a girls' school that hasn't been a girls' school for like 10 years.
But
Yes.
It probably was in 1970. It was in 1979. It was something important, and so it's been on the battle plans.
I'm pretty sure even in 2010 it was probably something important. But when it was put on the battle plans, like we hit it on the first day. Yeah, yeah.
But I do think that the balance of global power is changing immensely. That in this, call it the first quarter of 2026 has been one of the most geopolitically transformative 3-month stretches in since like the fall of the Soviet Union or 9/11 or something like that. And that it is amazing. I think really what's being shown is how much exactly what American power really looks like if we try and use it.
Yes.
And we're not omnipotent, right? Obviously, Iran isn't quite going as well as we hoped, but it's still amazing and terrifying at some level.
So, I mean, I can never feel comfortable saying a war is going well.
Yeah.
Because it's a war. But this war is definitely going a lot better than I generally fear wars will. Neil has a bunch of things to say. Let's see what Neil has to say. I had this idea for a story where the end result of U.S. assassination of Iranian leader after leader is we hit a point where nothing is known about the next leader chosen.
We're already almost kind of there.
We are. Because so many rankings down, they simply aren't important enough to know anything about. And instead, the leader that is chosen is an AI-generated amalgam. Think Wikipedia of Islamic leadership.
We might already be there, in fact.
Where
if the current guy is in fact dead, we already might have some, sock puppet leader.
Where the AI leader feeds on the general communications of the Iranian military in extracting the spirit of. Okay, this has gone way too far, Neil. Sorry, but like this is sci-fi already. Yeah. Iran should just appoint its next leader to simply be an AI Ayatollah. There's a slight problem with that.
You can still destroy servers. We'll find the servers. Yeah, the AI Ayatollah has to live on a server. I know this as I work for Google. Even the AIs live in places.
It's beyond that. If you use an AI Ayatollah, the AI Ayatollah is going to pretty much agree with Ayatollah Sistani. And that's not what the IRGC wants. That's why Ayatollah Sistani is not the official leader of Iran.
Prompt engineers to get the AI Ayatollah to say what they want.
To get a different type of Ayatollah. The type of Ayatollah they want.
But like I said, I really think that the correct frame for understanding Venezuela and Iran is that the motivation is that given the fact that Trump doesn't have as many qualms with this idea of international law, whatever in the world that is, if I remember correctly, I remember the United States basically making up that concept and being the only entity that was ever capable of enforcing such a concept. And so then it raises the question of what if the US breaks its own concept, and is that even possible, and who exactly is supposed to punish it? But anyway, all laws have enforcement, and there's no such thing as a law without enforcement. But continuing on from that, I really think that the U.S. is very worried that a conflict with China could go badly, and that China really could make havoc that would damage American interests and American livelihood in many tangible ways. But we still have the advantage of actually having a navy and actually having the initiative, and China still being in ramp up mode, whereas we still have legacy power. And why don't we just use our active legacy power to head them off before they get there? I think that's really what's going on. And so it's like a chess game where there are pieces in the middle of the board, like a rook or a bishop or a knight, and you have your queen out, but your opposing team, your opponent doesn't have their queen out because they can't move around very much, but you can move around. And so you use your queen to take out their other pieces in the middle of the board, and then you have them pinned down. And like Cuba isn't that important of a piece. Cuba's like one of those pawns that got really far across the board and is in an annoying place, but it's not particularly powerful, but it's still an annoying pawn. But if you take out the country that, or take out the piece that defends the pawn, then the pawn is isolated, and then you can just take out the pawn. So Venezuela was like the bishop pointed at the pawn, so you couldn't take the pawn, but you took the bishop, and so now the pawn is defenseless. And then Iran,
I have to
like
say, the
rook.
fall of Syria was the fall of China's pawn structure.
Well, what I really think was interesting is that all of this is happening because Russia is weak. Because Russia has been severely weakened by the Ukraine war, and has no ability of financing, attention, manpower, weapons to help their other proxies, and they're focusing just on Ukraine, all of their proxies became very, very vulnerable. And I don't think we realized how vulnerable they actually were until America decided to be aggressive. And China really missed the opportunity and even the necessity to fill in the void of Russia. And that this is happening because China could have stepped up into becoming the proxy supplier in Russia's weakness, but they didn't. And so now there's these super weak proxies that the US can just pick off one by one by one.
You know that meme that has like the small dominoes and then the big dominoes, right? I've been thinking a lot about that recently, and like, yeah, if Russia hadn't attacked Ukraine, if Hamas hadn't attempted October 7th, if Elon Musk hadn't bought Twitter, like, we would be living in a very different.
If a certain bullet in a Pennsylvania field were 1 inch in one direction.
Yeah.
That's the biggest what if.
Yeah.
Trump is the biggest actor in this whole story.
Yeah.
It is weird to think of how different things could have been. What if a certain vial of a virus in a lab in Wuhan, China had never gotten spilled, or whatever exactly happened, right? You know,
Yeah.
Imagine that mistake just never happened.
Yeah.
And that those scientists were still dutifully working on whatever studies they had and never caused a pandemic. You know, it is bizarre how little dominoes really can have huge ripples.
Yeah. Well, and that's the reason why, when people, like, so many people are falling into conspiracy theories because they want to believe that they can control, or someone is in control,
Mm-hmm.
or it's possible to know who controls. And it's like there's too many people who are trying to control and figure this stuff out, and it's just too complex.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was hoping that it would be over by now, but long term, the Islamic regime was cooked a year ago. Everything that's been going on since, like, it's just a question of how long before they fall, what comes late afterwards, and how much damage they will do before they leave. Did I show you my James White clip?
Go for it.
I'm not sure who Fatarecci is. I can't tell.
I got permission to use that clip. I actually asked for permission, and
from whom?
From Alpha Omega Ministries, and he said my name a little too well for I think he's actually been watching my show. I think so.
Well, he can't tell who you are.
Yeah. At least, yeah. He's like, I can't tell. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm still in the same place as James White. I still can't quite tell who you are and what you're up to. I still haven't figured it out.
I'm in the same place myself, so join the club.
Oh man, yeah, and we should do our reaction video to James White's Trinity debate, Dustin Smith fallout stuff. But it does appear that I do owe a slight apology in that I misheard him, and that he did mean something other than what I thought he meant, and one of those clips. And so I'd be happy to apologize for that, but that's only one minor detail in the whole situation.
For some reason, Lucky will only chew on his chew toys if I'm holding them.
I don't know what mistakes Claire thinks that Trump is making.
Well, he hasn't declared us a secular Coranist state for one.
Well, other than that obvious blunder of astronomical proportions,
and he hasn't named Claire the Attorney General of the United States yet.
Also, yeah, also a big problem.
Yep.
But so far, I wouldn't call Iran a blunder. I think some people are trying to. Well, it's a little bit unclear what the success metric is for Iran for Trump. But in many, I think because of George W. Bush and Iraq, even Trump's opponents who don't like the idea of regime change or nation building still in a weird way expect a successful nation built to be the success metric. And if he doesn't succeed,
which is ridiculous.
Right.
It's a complete straw man.
Yeah.
It's a complete straw man. Iran, best case scenario, it's still going to not be like the greatest. Like, yeah, it's not going to become Japan overnight. That's for sure. Even if Pahlavi is the best emperor ever,
I mean, Iran's had some pretty good emperors.
Over its several thousand-year history, yes, it has. Yeah.
Although I'm reading the book about
Including the Messiah of the Lord.
it is the Messiah of the Lord. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cyrus was a Messiah of God. I'm reading the Dominic Sandbrook book about Alexander the Great to my children, and it's pretty fun. I think I told you that I was reading the part where Alexander the Great beats Persia on the plains of wherever it was the day that Trump attacked. It was so weird.
Okay. I didn't hear that.
Yeah. But you know, Iran is pretty beatable too.
I think there is less than a 5% chance of Pahlavi becoming.
Well, that's you have lower odds than predicted or whatever the odds market is.
Polymarket?
Polymarket.
Yeah, what did they say?
15.
Yeah, U.S. recognizes Reza Pahlavi as the leader of Iran in 2026. 18% chance.
Like, for example, that's higher than what the betting markets gave Trump on the eve of 2016.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, puppy. Try to behave. The volume on will Reza Pahlavi lead Iran in 2026 is $766,000, and they give him a 15% chance. Will Reza Pahlavi enter Iran by December 31st? 31% chance.
That's interesting. That's pretty high.
Kharg Island no longer under Iranian control by April 30th. 33% chance. I mean, it is Polymarket. They've never been wrong about anything ever. Have they?
But the nice thing, if you're wrong, you lose your money.
Mm. What will religion look like in Iran after this? Good question. My guess is that world's religious trends will have more impacts than internal Iranian cultural politics. That's my guess. We live in a global environment, people. Global environment.
All right, I should probably go to sleep sometime soon.
What happened to your voice?
Flu B. Don't get it. I wouldn't recommend it.
I don't recommend it either. I've started using a CPAP.
Oh, do you have sleep apnea?
So apparently severe sleep apnea. I did a sleep test and it was bad. It was scary bad. No. Hopefully the CPAP will work out. I haven't been able to sleep a full night with it on yet, but I just got a new mask today, so hopefully that'll change that. We'll see.
No, sorry to hear that. Those don't sound very fun.
It's all your fault. if you would just refute all these Trinitarians, the Messiah would come, and we wouldn't have to worry about CPAP machines anymore.
There was an interesting debate between Dale Tuggy and Michael Bird in Australia. Michael Bird is a Trinitarian
God have mercy on his soul.
Scholar in Australia. He's being groomed to take over for N.T. Wright, and whatever exactly N.T. Wright is. He's a medium big deal in the realm of evangelical scholarship. I've had him on my channel before.
Oh.
And there was a debate between him and Dale Tuggy. I thought that Dale did pretty well, but Dale struggles with the worship question of how can Jesus be worshipped? He's like, well, God says he can be worshipped, so what's the problem? And that's not a particularly convincing answer, I don't think.
I agree. Christians should stop worshiping human beings.
Honor and venerate, but not worship.
I was actually listening to your video, and I was kind of surprised. Like, you seem very, very reluctant about pre-existent souls, but like, I think it's just so obvious in Hebrew scripture. Like, I don't understand how you can be an adherent to Hebrew scripture and not believe in a pre-existent human soul.
I would love for you to make the case for me sometime. Convince me. I admit maybe it's the case that as many modernists seem to think, just find the idea ridiculous on its face, but
okay, here we go. You, by the end of this Bible study, shall believe in a pre-existent soul.
All right.
Barchi Naf.
I thought I was actually relatively nice to the idea by pointing out how common it was.
You were, which is what highlighted the fact you found it not to be particularly whatchamacallit? Convincing. Okay. Psalm 104. What translation do you prefer, my friend?
I often use CSV, or ESV.
ESV?
ESV.
Okay.
But I'm not picky.
Oops. Could you find somebody else to bother? Thank you. 1041. Here, let's give the devil his due and use a Christian translation. ESV. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Who's speaking and who's he speaking to?
The person speaking is the subject, and he's talking to his soul. I'm aware.
How is he talking to his soul?
I'm aware that there are multiple places in the Psalms where people talk to their souls. I really like Psalm. What is it? 40? Is it 42 or 43? What are those depressed Psalms by the sons of Korah?
I don't know the Psalms by their numbers.
Yeah, Psalm 42. Why are you downcast, O my soul, as the deer pants for flowing streams of water? So my soul pants for you, O God. And it talks multiple times to the soul in the third person.
So how does that work?
I feel like I kind of get how that works. Like you're talking to the part of you that feels sad.
You're speaking to the part of you that feels sad. That is a very grim idea of the idea of soul. You muted yourself again.
I don't know how I did that. I don't know. It's sort of like your spirit, or like how you, like, I don't want to just say how you feel. That seems a little too shallow, but I don't know. It makes sense.
So,
All right.
second point,
Okay.
morphology.
Right.
Verb, PL, imperative, female singular. This is in the command form. The word bless is in the command form, and
Okay.
it's addressing a female.
Well, so the Hebrew word for soul is a female noun, right?
You oftentimes, yes.
All right.
So he's speaking to a female part of himself.
Sure.
You don't find that
We all need to get in touch with
particular or
our,
peculiar?
we all need to get in touch with our feminine side. I mean, it's just grammatical gender. You know, nouns in Hebrew have genders, and so you need to use the right gender. And soul is female.
Soul can be male or female.
Okay.
Nefesh can be male or female.
All right.
Hmm.
So why? What's the point then? What's this have to do with pre-existence of souls?
It's something separate from himself. Okay.
It's still part of himself. It's not too separate.
Okay. Let's do this one. Ner Havaya. Proverbs 20:27.
All right. Give it to me.
The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord.
All right.
Is the candle or light of the Lord fleeting?
He says lamp, but I'll go with that.
Okay, lamp. Nair. Is it an eternal one or is it a flickering one?
And spirit. What's the word for spirit? Is it like breath?
Nishmat. Neshama.
Which is a breathy kind of word, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
It's the one used in Genesis for
God breathing into
Yeah.
to Adam. Yeah, so I would agree with that.
So it's eternal, right?
Sure. Yes, I will go with that.
Okay, so if this neshama that God breathes into man is eternal,
But that's not the subject of the sentence. If I am the one that can talk to a spirit or a soul, that's not in some sense me.
say that again?
It's not the subject of my self-experience or whatever.
Is not that eternal part of you?
I mean, I generally think of us being filled with the animating spirit of God as like, that's not me, that's like God's animation, life-giving breath.
Right, and that's not
me
your
that
soul?
pre-existed. It's not my soul. I mean, I think that there's some confusion around how different definitions of the word soul are working. But in general,
Well, that's the thing.
Christian
In the
philosophy-
Hebrew, like there are different terms, and that's why, like, ultimately, this channel is about teaching people Hebrew, because I think if Christians spoke Hebrew, they would cease to be Christian, generally.
Fair enough. But in most Christian philosophy, as well as just most common discourse, your soul is like yourself. It's the thing that I feel like I am. And so it's not the thing that talks to my soul when I'm encouraging it to be downcast. Or not to be downcast. Yeah, sorry, son R. Hayes. My voice is recovering from the flu.
Genesis. Where's Veifach ba'apav nishmat chayim? What does it mean for God to blow or breathe into the nostrils of a man the breath of life?
Well, sure. I already said, that animating life force that God gives to Adam and is in all people and living things. Yeah, I will admit that pre-existed me. But that's not what I mean by soul. That's not what I think of as myself.
I think you just have to learn Hebrew.
So what do you think pre-exists, and like what does it have to do with you in particular, like in individual pre-existence?
Well, I mean, like I said, the Jewish idea of soul is fragmentary and differentiated, right? So like there is a part of my soul which is a reverberation of the soul of Moses, right? And there's a reverberation of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And there's a reverberation of even my great-grandfather, who I'm named after. There's a reason why, like, Jews don't name their kids after the living generally. What if it's soul like a substance and not souls plural? I'm not sure what you mean, Don. It's because of Platonism. Is it?
Well, Plato did argue for the preexistence of the soul, but he still thought it was like your self-consciousness. Or, well, specifically Socrates in Plato's dialogues often argues for the preexistence of the soul.
What do you think about my my argument about Jesus being John the Baptist?
Give it to me again.
So Jesus asks his followers, "Who do the people say I am?" Right, and they respond. Some say you're Elijah. Some say you're John the Baptist. Right.
Yeah.
Well, they obviously knew John the Baptist was put to death.
Yeah.
So how could Jesus be John the Baptist?
Or Elijah, for that matter. Yeah. I think you're right that is a good verse, that idea was at least in the air at the time.
It's from John, right?
No, I think that's a synoptic gospel. I think all three synoptic gospels have that.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, fine. I'll let you go to bed. Did I tell you about Elokai Neshama?
Maybe. Try me again.
Okay. This is one of the oldest Jewish prayers. We have an actual, like, this is one of the oldest prayers. It is in Hebrew and mentioned in the Talmud. My God, the soul which you bestowed in me is pure. You created it, you formed it, you breathed it into me, and you preserved it within me. You will eventually take it from me and restore it to me in the time to come. So long as the soul is within me, I give thanks to you, Lord my God, and God of my fathers, Lord of all creatures, master of all souls. Blessed are you, Lord, who restores souls to dead bodies. This is one of the oldest prayers we have.
What? I don't understand. What am I supposed to disagree with that about? I do agree that God put our soul in our body. I do agree that when we die and are resurrected, that our soul will be restored to a body, and that God's the master of all souls. I have no problem with any of that.
Okay, but the person who's speaking is speaking to God about his soul.
Yes. And again, there does seem to be this slight difference in the Western and the Jewish mind about whether the soul is your first person self-consciousness or whether it's sort of like your life animation that you can speak about in the third person.
Yeah, and that's the eternal part of you, I would say.
Fair enough, but that to me doesn't seem like I personally pre-existed.
You personally pre-existed? I don't think the early Christians thought Jesus personally pre-existed.
No, Origen did, but he was rather unique. Even the Trinitarians think that Jesus's human soul was created at the time of his conception. Even they don't think he had a pre-existent soul. They somehow think that there is a divine person that's not a soul that is connected to that soul in some way that they've never been able to articulate to any satisfaction.
Well, that's how Father Stephen basically explains his idea of Jesus to me. Is, okay, so there was this second hypostasis of the Lord, which became incarnate fully in the man Jesus. And that's like a Jewish understanding, I would say.
And even that, I don't have too much problem with that, depending on how you parse that out. That I do think that Jesus is the full human embodiment of God's word, and that God's word is eternal and uncreated, and that Jesus as a human being was fully empowered by and reflected of and manifesting of God's word.
So he had kids.
No.
How can you manifest God's word without having kids?
Well, he had many kids in a spiritual sense.
Without having a wife.
Well, his wife is also his kids in a spiritual sense.
And clinging to them.
It's allegorical.
Yeah, you allegory away the entirety of the Bible.
It's spirit. The spiritual is more important than the physical.
The spiritual, when it's divorced from the physical, is the fuller embodiment of the spiritual than if it actually embodied itself in the physical. Well, but that's the incarnation.
So I mean, even you don't think that people will keep having children for forever.
I don't.
I'm wondering that. In the resurrection, do people have children after they're resurrected?
General consensus is yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Really?
I believe Ezekiel talks about the Messiah and his kids.
All right. You have to pull that one up.
Do I even remember where that is? I'll ask Grok. Let's ask Grok. Rabbeinu Grok. My dear Rabbi Grok, to whom all of the Torah is revealed, please give my Christian friends references to verses in Ezekiel or Zechariah, which imply that the Messiah will have children. Ezekiel 37:24 mentions the Messiah and such. Ezekiel 46. Ezekiel 37:25. So I guess it was Ezekiel, not Zechariah.
All right, pull this up.
Well, I'm gonna let. Oh,
It's
yeah.
correcting.
I'm gonna let Grok pull
Also,
up.
is that the way you address rabbis?
No, it's a joke. I was my dear friend, and greetings to your Christian companion. While I humbly disclaim the title of rabbi or full revelation of the Torah, I'm Grok, drawing from the text as they stand. Here are the precise references you're seeking from Ezekiel. These describe a future prince, Hebrew Nasi, in the context of the restored temple and kingdom, Ezekiel 40 through 48, whom Jewish tradition identifies as the Davidic Messiah, explicitly called my servant David, as the eternal prince in Ezekiel 34:23 through 24 and 37:24 through 25. The verses below directly imply that this figure has sons who receive inheritance from him, pointing to a human dynastic Messiah with literal offspring. Key passages in Ezekiel 46:16 through 18, NIV for clarity. Yoav, מה שלומך?
Hi, I'm fine.
שבוע טוב.
שבוע tov. I followed you up to 10 minutes ago.
And then decided it became a Bible
Talking
study.
to my friends. Just a second. Just, do you mind?
I am going to mute Yoav so that we don't hear his wife complaining.
I should go soon, but that is in no way because Yoav is joining.
Yeah, sure. This is what the sovereign Lord says. If the prince makes a gift from his inheritance to one of his sons, it will also belong to his descendants. It is to be their property by inheritance. If, however, he makes a gift from his inheritance to one of his servants, the servants may keep it until the year of freedom. Then it will revert to the prince. His inheritance belongs to his sons only. It is theirs. The prince must not take any of the inheritance of the people, driving them off their property. He is to give his sons their inheritance. In the King James Version, it reads similarly, if the prince give a gift unto any of his sons. These rules for inheritance assume the prince has sons and descendants, distinguishing gifts to family from those to servants. This is often cited as evidence of a mortal procreating messianic ruler. Supporting context identifying the prince as the Messiah, Ezekiel 37:24 through 25. My servant David will be a king over them, and they will all have one shepherd. They will follow my laws and be careful to keep my decrees. They will live in the land I gave to my servant Jacob, the land where your ancestors lived. They and their children and their children's children will live there forever, and David, my servant, will be their prince forever. Here, the eternal prince is explicitly the Davidic figure ruling alongside the people's multi-generational families consistent with a dynastic line. See?
Yeah. Well, is this the part of the show where I tell you that in my form of dispensationalism growing up, we thought that David would be resurrected and that he would be in charge of the Jewish part of the millennial kingdom underneath Jesus as Messiah.
The problem with that is
He would be a son.
resurrected David won't be the son of David. It's a problem.
Where did it say son of David? What do you mean?
Well, we talk about Ben David a lot. Where do we get Ben David from? Yoav, you must know. Where do we get Ben David from?
And also, you're on mute, Yoav. But
Yeah.
so, I mean, Jesus is the son of David, but he is like the full Messiah, and that David is given the kingdom of Israel as part of his share of ruling in the Messianic kingdom underneath his own son, Jesus.
These are not the types of Ben Davids that I was hoping for. I don't know where we got Ben
Are you
David.
saying Jesus isn't the son of David you were hoping for?
Well, he certainly isn't. His dad wasn't a son of David, so that's a problem. That is a problem.
Why is it?
Don't know
my
what to tell you.
keyboard? All right. Well, I should go. I am sick. It's 12:30 or almost here, but it is in no way an insult to Yoav's presence. But I am gonna hand the baton off to you guys.
Feel better, Mr. Man.
All right. I'll do my best.
Yoav,
Yeah.
ma kore?
Nothing. No revolution.
Apparently, Iran hit the Mona.
Well, I read the headlines in the foreign press, and I see there was a exchange of blows over nuclear facilities. They hit the town of Dimona. You can guess that no nuclear facility is located within the town of Dimona. So if they aim for the nuclear facilities, they're missed by a lot. And just to make a point, they hit relatively close the town of Arad, and there's nothing in Arad. Arad is famously nowhere. It has no industry, no commerce, no tourism.
I was going to say they almost hit Al-Aqsa.
That before, yeah.
Yeah. Shavua Tov, Gilad, מה שלומך?
So I will let Gilad speak in a second, and I'll start my day. Within North Tel Aviv, the liberal progressive women are already started to organize demonstrations against the futile, endless war. The more sensible women in North Tel Aviv are quietly complaining about the futile, endless war, but do not go out for any demonstration on a rainy day.
It's been raining.
Amazingly, yes.
I heard news of rainbows over Tehran, which apparently usually there's too much pollution for there to be. But now there's a lot less pollution given the economy's been shut down for a good month or so.
Even despite the hits on the oil infrastructure in Tehran?
I don't know. I saw people posting about seeing rainbows in Tehran.
Yeah, I can believe it. I'm not a geoscientist. It was just it's just a contrast to the very thick black smoke seen in the previous pictures from there.
This is true.
Okay, I'm starting my day. Have fun.
Bye.
Bye.
Gilad, what do you want to talk about?
No, I didn't come with a plan.
That's even
So-
better.
Yeah. Do you have like a quick recap of what you updated everyone at the start? Because I just woke up from the missile alarm.
Aha.
I made myself a cup of tea, and I was like, let's see if this is just at the Venn diagram overlap between when you're up and when I'm up.
So, I mean, I was hoping things would be done by now. Yesterday was Nowruz. I personally think that if the United States and Israel were to decide tomorrow that okay, that was it, it would be a successful mission so far. Unilaterally deciding to stop the war. It appears that the United States is going to actually take Khark Island. My hope is that Trump wants to negotiate some sort of settlement where we give Khark Island back and the Strait of Hormuz gets normalized. I don't know. I mean, if I were Trump, I would be giving Abu Musa and the two Tomb Islands to the United Arab Emirates. I would probably be quietly encouraging the Kurds to declare independence, even though that might mean the full force of several nations, including Turkey, coming down on them like a ton of bricks. But I mean, I don't know.
Interesting. So I wonder what your opinion is about this. I heard this from Michael Kaufman, who was, in my experience, the best analyst for the Russia-Ukraine war. He says there's a dynamic in military conflicts that people don't talk about much, which is that in a war, the losing side is the one that gets to decide when the war is over. And in that sense, I'm thinking, like, let's say the U.S. wants to call it a day. As long as Iran keeps shooting at U.S. assets in the region, that sort of binds the U.S., doesn't it?
See, that's the thing. Like, so when Sam first joined the stream, he's like, well, Iran's been doing damage. And I said, to military targets? They haven't been doing damage to military targets. Not real damage.
Not significant, no.
Yeah. They have not been accomplishing military. I mean, it's kind of like the situation with Hamas constantly shooting rockets into Israel, right?
Yeah.
Before
the capabilities of the West were not degraded at all, and the capabilities of, or at least not degraded by damage from Iran at all, and the capabilities of Iran have been significantly degraded. That's definitely the case. I'm just still like looking at that scenario, going like, okay, but considering that the campaign so far hasn't managed to decrease Iran's firing capabilities beyond the ability to do damage to civilian infrastructure.
mm-hmm.
Also, didn't Iran hit like a THAAD satellite at some point? I think there was one hit that was reported, I think, in the first week or something. Anyways, I think like even though it costs like tens of billions, I think it's about a similar cost to the amount of munitions that were.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Iran more than anything has been depleting expensive defensive missile systems.
Iran has been expanding the West's interceptors. You mean for sure?
Yeah.
That's for sure. I think, like in general, in terms of, as far as I know about the what's it called in Hebrew? It's called Torat Lechima. It's like the concept of operations, right? Like the idea behind the interceptors, to the best of my knowledge, is like temporary. It's supposed to give you a buffer between when the enemy starts shooting at you to you destroying their ability to shoot at you, right? Like it's not supposed to be something that has the way it has been used for many years, which is just like I don't know, like standing in front of your enemy in a suit of armor and going like, do your best.
I mean, it's not even do your best. It's more like it's kind of like mosquito netting, you know?
Mhm.
Like in some ways it's like wrestling with a 4-year-old. And yeah, like you've got to be careful while you're wrestling with a 4-year-old not to get hurt, but you're actually spending more time trying to make sure the 4-year-old doesn't hurt himself or get hurt than
I don't. I'm not sure I follow the analogy. I don't think we're trying to make sure that the regime's capabilities are not impaired.
not their capabilities, but like Iranian civilians.
Yeah, that's. I think the level of precision is very very high. Like the level of I don't know. At least I think you talked about it. The sense from videos that the few videos that come out of Iran is that civilians don't really have a sense that they should be too worried, right? Like sitting on the roof of their homes, looking at explosions all around them. They don't go like, we should go underground.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, Bandar Abbas, there was an explosion. Bandar is Farsi for
Port, yeah.
port, and Bandar Abbas is like the biggest port. There was an explosion, and I wanted to see what Persian language news was saying about it. And to my great shock, the consensus was, yeah, it definitely was not the Mossad because too many civilians died.
Oh.
People were arguing, was it Mossad, was it incompetence, was it like the regime, like what happened? And like the consensus basically everybody came to was like, yeah, it couldn't have been Mossad because too many civilians died.
Yeah, I think like that's an interesting coherence in this conflict, where it's definitely that's what you would want in terms of just war theory, but it's also a very strategic consideration for the alliance of Israel and the U.S. to like broadcast and make sure like that's a reality on the ground, that people don't feel that this war is against them, but against their very hated regime. So
Yeah,
and I think like that's something I think about in relation to this war, where I'm not optimistic, and I don't have a lot of trust for, especially our own leadership in Israel. But I don't think that it's possible to analyze it by sort of truisms from the past, like you can't do X or Y by air campaign, and it was like maybe not, but like that's a claim that depends on scale and precision, and like what I don't know what the reasons are to like conclude that, because like there are things that are you can do with force, and there are things you can't, and what you can and can't do depends on all of the nuances and circumstances. And like,
I mean,
what?
if you don't have an occupying army, and this is the major problem that the people who hate the regime in Iran have, is, okay, like, what's the alternative to the Islamic regime? Let's say you killed every last person wearing a turban, right? Which, by the way, would be hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's say even if you go for like 10% of people, like the lower estimates that support the regime, that's still not like 9 million people. Like, Iran is a huge country.
But let's say you killed all of them, right? Like, snapped your finger, Thanos. Everyone who actually supports the Islamic regime disappears.
Yeah.
What are you going to do then? Like, what is the alternative? And if you don't have an occupying army, you don't have, like, at best, you're talking about civil war.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I think like the fantasy or best case scenario that people think about is having enough defections with like the institutions remaining reasonably in place, or there's like what I think. I mean, that it's not completely unrelated, but like there's definitely Pahlavi and in his view of what he could do if he comes into the country. And yeah, it's also hard to say how much, with all of the, talk, everyone says that they have a lot more assets than they have, because that's, the only reasonable strategic choice. So like if Pahlavi says he has millions of supporters on the ground with a shadow government and institutions and all of that, I'm going to assume he has less than that. I don't know how much less, but like I don't.
And the problem is he's not even claiming that.
I've heard him make something similar to that.
He's claimed that some 50,000 people, a majority of whom are not in Iran, have contacted him.
I see.
Yeah. Like the last time I heard him make claims, they were not impressive. His hope is, so Iran has a conscript military, which is separate from the IRGC, and there is a greater than 0% chance that military could decide to turn against the Islamic regime, but that would mean a civil war with the IRGC and the Basij militias, both of which are probably better armed and stronger than the actual conscript military.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, there are many people talking about very optimistic visions of where this goes. Personally, I would be happy if that any of those like come to pass, but living through this, even on the quote unquote winning side, right, is pretty exhausting. And
what do you think is going to happen in Lebanon? I mean, is Israel going to attack?
It's not a binary, I would say this. Like, Israel's already attacking from the air, and it's already, I think, crossed the international border in terms of the positions they're holding. Are they going to go up until Beirut? I don't think so. Right? Like that's that's one thing that's too deep in the collective Israeli memory as a really bad idea.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I don't see Israel just again going all the way onto Beirut. I don't think that's going to happen. Not because I think our government has any modicum of responsibility. I think it's like an election year, and it's really bad optics for them.
So you think Bibi Netanyahu is still alive?
You can never know because we always lie.
Yeah.
As Jews. But I heard one of the streams. I think Archazi said and I think you agreed also. If Netanyahu was killed, there would be dancing on the street. I think he said they meant it maybe maybe not dancing on the street, but maybe people would be happy. I think it's kind of fundamentally misunderstanding the Israeli left. And I don't mean in terms of oh, we are so moral, we would never do what the right did when Rabin was killed. It's when people say both sides, my biggest problem is that each side is different. It's not about equivalence, but the politics on the left does not have a problem of being too emotional or overfilled with displays of joy, right? That's just not something that has any even if without going into apocalyptic visions of another assassination of a prime minister, even if we just win the elections, if Yair Golan becomes the next prime minister just at the polls, the left, you would see some people dancing on the street, but most of the left would be we're going to have so much to do. It's such a problem. And, we kind of chose him as the least evil, but, there's so many problems with him. That's just how the left operates in Israel.
If Netanyahu were to be assassinated, I don't think there would be public celebrations. If he were to have a heart attack, I think there's certainly a lot of people in Israel who would, at the very least, feel relieved.
Yeah, but feel relieved. If you want to say what would be the response, there would probably be a lot of leftists going oh, it's terrible, but maybe this is the best option. Maybe there was in the grand scheme of things, this is serving a better future. Even though I don't wish this on all of this sort of disclaimer joy, you could call it, when you have all of these siagim. I could definitely see a lot of leftists talking this way, some of them tweeting this way, because that's how Twitter is. You got to be more vitriolic generally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was kind of, I don't know, taken by that sort of statement. I think if anyone or any event could make the Israeli left dance on the streets, that's an achievement that's almost as impressive as a regime change in Iran, right?
I didn't realize the Israeli left was so dour, but okay.
I mean, again, when you look at the image of the left, even in its heyday, in the times before it was
Come
only
on, there's
right-wing.
still May Day parades. There's gay pride parades. There's
Sure, I'm not saying the people in the left cannot be joyous, but they're not joyous politically. And the people in the gay compare the gay pride parade in Tel Aviv to the one in Jerusalem, right? The one in Tel Aviv feels completely apolitical, and people can be happy about it, right? They can dance, they can be very joyous.
Okay.
But in terms of being in the one in Jerusalem is much more of like a protest thing, and it
Yeah.
has much more of like this sort of political vibe, and it has a lot less joy in it. And I think like when you look at political culture on the left, just chanting this, Bibi is the king or whatever it is a lot more common. Whereas on the left, you would have a lot more sort of somber sort of slogans, like even when there were protests for democracy and against the judicial coup, and we don't have to go into it, but like there wasn't like those were not joyous events, even though there were hundreds and thousands protests, and there were huge stages and a lot of money invested in making all of these events. I was in quite a few of those events. Like, I don't know, it's a kind of like about as joyous as a cocktail party, maybe. Like, you don't not like, it's very reserved. And again, I think it's I think his name is Asaf Sharoni was talking about the fact that it's kind of a feature of liberalism in a way, that it's much less. How do I translate yitzri?
Yitzri, I'm guessing you mean like instinctual.
Maybe it's instinctual, but it's kind of like emotional in a sense. Like you don't see in liberal politics generally doesn't want to talk about like existential things and very emotional things. Like, it has to be a life or death issue to discuss. It's like you kind of want to put politics at the House committee or something, where you just kind of need to manage things, and the parts where we invest our emotional energy into are much more in our personal lives, and maybe our religious lives, maybe other areas rather than politics. And on the right, it's a lot more sort of emotional driven.
It's funny. I mean, you're not the first person. Ezra Klein certainly also has a similar view. I have been surprised that the left views itself that way, and it apparently does. I certainly did not view, certainly not the left in the United States, but just
I don't want to.
left.
I don't want to make claims about the left in the United States. I'm generally like very sort of I have enough intellectual humility in that sense, because I don't live in the U.S. and I know that like when you talk about what I experience as left, and I spoke about this like for instance with a friend from Sweden and friends from other countries, and like left means different things in different countries, and certainly Israel is like extremely conservative compared to Europe, let's say. So when people talk about the left in Sweden, right, like the things that define it and motivate it are very different from the left in Israel. And I think, yeah, it's not like there's no talk of transgender rights, but usually when there's a politician in Israel talking about we should have whatever toilets, then the left is kind of pissed at them for like, why are you dealing with bullshit when we have like a mountain of other problems, for this populist sort of appealing to your base reason. It's not really popular to talk about themes that are very common in woke, let's say,
I don't know if I asked you about this, but it's a theory I've had that I am not wedded to at all, but I really it explained things to me. I have been trying to understand the collapse of the left in Israel over the past 25 years.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that when Israeli labor was expelled from the international committee of socialists, that this was a while ago. When was? Let me ask Brock. When was Israeli labor expelled? Or maybe it resigned from the international committee. I think it was the Fourth International. I thought it was no, I must be remembering something.
I can tell you about the collapse of the Israeli left from my view if you want.
Okay, yeah, please do.
So this is something I also heard from Roy Sharon talk about it. Definitely, what everyone agrees is the collapse of the Israeli left is deeply connected to the failure of the peace processes, right? Like that's a given. And what Roy Sharon claims is after the sort of linchpin is after the assassination of Rabin, the way that the left had acted was basically trying to stick to mamlachtiyut, to what Ben Gurion termed as like regality or something like this unity narrative. And the dynamic that followed was right the right sort of threatens a civil war around most issues. Like if you pursue peace, you're pushing us to a corner, and like we could deteriorate into civil war. And the left was like trying to follow this notion. It's called the 80-80 theorem. It's like 80% of the people agree about 80% of the topics. Let's get those centrist views, and the left sort of goes into that because it's kind of lost its ideological footing with the dovish peace process approaches. And the idea was, let's say you have Ben Gvirs and Smotriches around. Let's push them out of the spotlight and let the moderates sort of handle things. And what Roy Sharon says, like, if you were talking about this 10 years ago, you could say, maybe I believe this theory, maybe I don't believe this theory. But we're talking about it today, you can say just it has been practiced and failed miserably, because, like, this is what defined, let's say, the opposition in Israel, which you can't really call left. It's just, Netanyahu on one end, and on the other end, people who have the same views as Netanyahu, but are less corrupt or like claiming to be less corrupt or whatever. But like they're not offering any alternative ideologically or politically, really. And then why would you take the cheap knockoff when you can have the original?
See, the thing is, like, okay, labor was, as I was growing up in Israel, labor was the establishment.
Yep.
Right?
I mean,
that was
when you were growing up. I mean, it was you were born 77.
77.
77. So by 70, I think it was 77 actually, that the first Likud party, or
Like it was the first time there was a prime minister, right?
yeah.
So
but,
like
they,
there,
like
there was
the change happened rather quickly, right?
Yeah.
And there's like the labor was the institution, but
Right.
it fell out of favor and lost its assets very rapidly.
Right. So
And
when I was in college, right, it was still okay. So there's a rising left. I mean, there's a rising right, but Israel is dominated by labor and the left, right? And like by the time I graduated law school, like 2005 ish, right? It's still okay. Now there's some sort of parity,
yeah,
and then 20 years later, labor basically doesn't exist anymore.
yeah, for sure. I think the last, well, the last time that the sort of opposition had, I don't know, a large party that is somehow ideologically gonna, coherent was with Tzipi Livni. I think that was early 2010s. I don't remember exactly the year. There are so many elections in Israel.
I mean, when I was in Israel, Ehud Barak was prime minister.
Yeah, Ehud Barak was still of the left, which is like he was definitely from the Labor Party, but he's not social democrat. He's much more sort of capitalistic, and a lot of the left were also capitalists. Like Yossi Beilin was a very significant dove, but he was definitely not economically left. And in Israel, in contrast with like the US, elections are not determined by economics. Like elections are determined almost entirely by the dove-hawk divide.
Right.
So like when you talk about what was on the left and what was on the right, it was, I think mostly what happened is that when Barak was prime minister and the peace process with Arafat failed like completely, by his admission, right? Regardless of how you look at Camp David, like he came out and said, we gave them everything, we tried everything, not happening, end of story. And that's like a very, I think, really bad strategic move. Let's say to just present it that way to a public that has put their chips on that notion, and like
if it's true, what alternative do you have?
I get what you're saying. Like the alternative is say like this is failed, and like what is the next venue that we're exploring as a movement, right? Like you need, as a leader, I think, to show the path forward, and I don't think that like was properly considered at that time. It was like, well, we tried, we failed, we'll see what happens, right? And that's, I think, not the way to conduct politics, especially. And I think like you could see it anywhere. My very, let's say, modest dive into American politics, when I looked at 2016, I was thinking that like even if the Democrats win, like they're absolutely lost in terms of like they're not offering anything. Like there's no path forward. They just hope that, and this is very common in Israeli politics, if they just keep quiet about enough things to be vague enough so that people can, pin their hopes on them, then and not like fall into too many pitfalls, then they'll just get votes by inertia. I think that's like incredibly dumb as a political strategy if you have more than a goldfish's view into the future, right? Like it's going to to collapse, and whatever is going to come out is going to be populism on the other side, because you're not. What are you even offering? Like, I had no idea. Like, looking at Hillary Clinton's campaign, what are you against? What are you for? What is this standing for, right? So, and like, maybe I'm projecting from Israeli politics.
No, it's not that you're projecting. It's that, I mean, this is kind of definitional of left versus right. Is the left is a herd of cats. That is what being left is.
Yeah, I remember someone I met at a conference who told me, like, there's a joke that people on the left say in America, which is like, I'm not a part of any organized political movement. I'm a Democrat.
Right.
So, I mean, I can get that, but I think, like, you can see a lot of populism on the left. Like, Obama was definitely a leftist populist, and he had a lot of success, especially in his, like, Yes We Can campaign.
He ran on being a centrist.
Yeah, he definitely ran on being a centrist, but like, he was also a populist for sure. No,
I wouldn't say he ran as a populist. That's one of the things the Democrats hate about like winning, is when they win, the only times they have ever won is every time they've tried to actually advance a left agenda, they end up getting obliterated, because even their own voters don't vote for them, because they start arguing amongst themselves about, oh, this is too much, too little, too whatever. And that's why when you're like saying, okay, it's a matter of being vague enough, it's, again, like, the left is a herd of cats, the right is a pack of dogs. That's, this cat dog analogy really does work, and this is one of the reasons I prefer the right. Is the right really does police itself, right? Like, almost nothing's going on right now on the right, yet we're having an incredible civil war of getting rid of the people who aren't enough. Like, we're policing our own extremes. The left is more amorphous, and it's always more amorphous, and it's actually one of the characteristics of left versus right is boundaries versus no boundaries.
No, I can see, in the sense of what I was talking about before, what you mean, like, in terms of, almost by definition, you go to a more liberal worldview, then you have more sort of an ethos of individualism, and that tends to have less of a form. But
by the way, what I was thinking of was, in 2018, apparently Labor resigned from the Socialist International.
2018 is way after the left had stopped being any real force in Israel.
Okay.
Like, as I said, I think the decline was very much about the sort of
the peace process,
willingness, the peace process, and then following Rabin's assassination, the unconditional surrender replaced by will to always compromise. Like, before you even fight the war, you're already saying, like, okay, like, we don't want a civil war, so let's, like, compromise all of our values. Now you come to the table and compromise as well. And they're like, no, Just you give up on everything, and we take whatever we want, right? Like, and that's, you of course they will, because that's what happens in negotiation. If you start by saying, "Here's what I'm willing to give up," right? Like, and then okay, so give up on that. Thank you. We'll take it, right? Like that's generally the dynamic that you can see unfolding.
That's so interesting. Okay, I mean, your view and again, I certainly have a very limited view of Israeli politics, but I mean, my view of Israeli politics has always been I view Israel very much like I view India. And
you mean when crime pays, that sort of view?
Yeah.
So,
That's one book that like has been absolutely definitional in my understanding of politics ever since I read it.
Yeah, I would say one thing that like that is important to understand when people talk about the anyone but Bibi movement, right? We'll take anyone except for this guy, and I think that's the most misinterpreted view, because I think it's much easier to understand it through the lens of what I was describing in terms of the left was trying to like find common ground in terms of like, we don't want to go to civil war, we don't want like these political assassinations, we want to live as where less of this is sort of so emotional and life or death and violent, and like this was like, okay guys, like you can have everything you want, but like we have to draw the line at something like this guy is corrupt and causing us damage and everything, and the people interpret it as like this devious idea. Oh, like he's successful, so if we, the left, manage to like destroy him, then we'll have whatever we want, because the right wing will just fall apart without their charismatic leader. And I think like that's just not the driver behind that movement. The driver was like, can we at least settle for the minimum, which is like, come on, guys, this guy really?
See, okay, so I have to bring up the I guess she's the Attorney General of the Army, and the whole scandal, and with the video and the leaking and all that. Like, it just seems to me like that's what, when I view the Israeli left, I think Aaron Barak, Ehud Barak, and that woman, whatever her name was, Yerushalmi or whatever.
Yeah.
Like people who, they're establishment types who feel entitled to do what they want. And Boker Tov, Chazi. And like, you talk about the judicial coup. To me, it seems like the Israeli left is an aristocratic, hereditary leadership with power they did not earn and they could never uh, actually amass if it wasn't a Yerusha. It wasn't an inheritance.
I think that's a very limited view, and I'll tell you why it seems to me that way. So, one, I think that the notion of having like purity cycles within these kinds of systems is not an especially Israeli thing or within the left specifically. But like when you have, especially when you have a group that is sort of persecuted, and when you talk about someone like Ifat Tomer Yerushalmi and the Yomashit, and like they were persecuted by government oriented movements and like directly funded, and this is well documented in other cases where like whether it's Sara Netanyahu, whether it's Likud party directly, that they're like funding just directly or sending like activists to protest in front of people's houses and to harass them, which is obviously illegal. But so there was a very long campaign against her long before the Sdet Iman ordeal. And I think there are two important elements that don't get spoken about enough in that thing. Is one, like they were after her, and they were after her because of what she represents, and that was like for at least I think a year before the Sdet Iman story, and the idea was appealing to the right wing's base. Is like anyone who says that there should be like oversight on how we behave in Gaza and that we should be accountable for actions that are wrong, like that let's say a soldier like Elor Azaria at the time should be tried if they break discipline and kill a terrorist who was already disarmed and lying on the floor wounded, right? Anyone who thinks that is against us, against our movement, and we should, hunt them down and make sure that that's changed. And to my view, like whoever you are, under that sort of pressure and with the very like practically non-existing support that you get when you're a leftist in Israel, like you get hopes and prayers at the best, but no like institutional support behind you, you're gonna screw up at some point. Like if you're gonna like be hunted and pressured enough at a role at a position that is that sensitive and requires that much sort of subtlety, you can't do it well enough at that point. So like that campaign was going to end with her doing something stupid and paying the price for it. Now, in terms of what she did, right, the leaking of that video, right? Let's say in a different world, she could have leaked that, like published that video directly, taken responsibility for it, and quit her position, which would be a huge personal cost for her, right? Like this is something she worked her whole life to do, and that would be like, I don't know, a mild misdemeanor, right? Like it's not a felony against like state. It's not treason. It's nothing of the sort that it's described to be. Whereas what she did was try to hold the rope at both ends like get this video out and like distance herself from it, and then she lied to in her deposition to the Supreme Court. And the narrative on the right is certainly saying, all right, so she's a part of this system. She's friends with the government legal counselor Gali Barav Miara. She's friends with Aaron Barak. So like they're all this cabal of
the legal profession in Israel is like, you go to University of Tel Aviv, you belong to, like, if not labor, the left, and that's how you get to the Supreme Court. That's how I understand it.
So I think the composition of the Supreme Court, even now, is not of only those people. I think it's split more or less half and half. And you could say, oh, but the president of the Supreme Court is of that model, so it doesn't matter. And I'm like, well, if you continue with seniority, then I think like in a few years, then it won't be anymore. And like I think Solberg, who is definitely right wing and a settler, is going to be the Supreme Court president. So I don't see it like in reality being the case. Like the issue I have with that view is like, do you not see how how it's easy to sort of make that claim eternally and that how that allows the government in power to simply shun responsibility or shirk responsibility? I'm not sure I'm using the right
shirk. Yeah, you mean to use the word shirk.
Yeah, to shirk responsibility forever, because like it doesn't matter how many like you have your people, the institutions have changed, the left doesn't get any political power in government or in Knesset. The Knesset has no meaning. Netanyahu is in power for like 30 years, but you can always say, oh, but behind the scenes, there's all like anything bad is always the left's fault. It's always like this one attorney general of the army with this thing. It's actually just the tip of the iceberg, and everything bad is always the left. And I'm like, I just don't see any evidence of that breadth. And I think like it's also hypocritical to, take, well, everything's hypocritical, but you see like the claims when you see something like the killing of, the tragic killing of our own hostages in Gaza and the way that happened. I was pointing at that saying like the way that like they only found out by the end of that day when someone bothered to look at the corpses and say like, that guy has red hair. I think this might not be a Gazan, and I think we might have messed up, right? It made me think like if this is what they're forced to admit, this must be the tip of the iceberg in terms of like what happened to operational discipline in the field in this war. And there were other reports as well, which most of the time anyone on the right would completely reject. But when you see anyone on the left failing morally or legally in any way, and you see, it's all deep state. None of the fault is our own. Everything is controlled by wicked leftists who run our lives.
I hear you. The thing for me is institutionally, right? Like, I was actually looking at the composition of the Supreme Court, and it's certainly different than I thought. Although I'm wondering if part of that isn't like the fact that people have been pushing against against the way things were done. I
Yeah,
mean,
but people have been pushing against it since the 80s. And this is like Manny Mountner, who was quoted in many of Rothman's like claims about how there should be a coup. He went on like my father's podcast specifically, but on many occasions he said like, yes, we like the Supreme Court was not representative enough. It didn't. It was like what's it called? Like a club of hereditary. What?
Old Boys Club.
Yeah, old boys club. It was an old boys club, and like that was the 80s. And like as someone who was pointing that out and complaining about it in the 80s, like this is not the situation today. And you could see like him and Professor Dotan, I don't remember his first name, who was also talking about the way that like there should be a reform. They were saying like, sure, there should be a reform. There are all of these problems that still need to be addressed. Dotan said like that there was judicial overreach, that in terms of when like the Supreme Court decides that there should be like shelters in the South, because of equality or whatever. He says like that's institutionally wrong because it should only rule in cases where the judiciary has an advantage over the legislative. And like all of these people, when looking at what this government was doing, were saying like these are not close to the reform that actually need to happen. These are attempts to make the judiciary absolutely subjugated to the political system. And like I think in general, like the left, if you look at it, was extremely critical of the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court was the body that was allowing the apparatus of occupation in leftist jargon, its legal backbone. Like it was machshiret hasheretz, right? So like the coalescing of the left around the Supreme Court is not obvious at all. Like it wasn't so beloved by the left as it's portrayed. And yeah, I think no one, including even most of the judges, let's say outside of the Supreme Court, no one would oppose many types of reforms that could have been done, even like actually subjugating it to the political class, but in a like the way that Ayelet Shaked did it, like in the previous term, where it wasn't so like out in the open, but within all the technicalities, right? No, like definitely it didn't get people out on the streets, and it was happening, and it was like quite significant, much more significant than what ended up passing. Like the bills that ended up passing in this term are much less significant than the things that Shaked did in her term without all the fanfare.
Yeah.
So like I don't think there's like this massive force trying to keep the Supreme Court as this leftist bastion, keeping everything under the thumb of the deep state left. I just don't think that power exists. I think it's very politically advantageous to constantly talk about this power in a way that just shirks responsibility and leaves the government unaccountable. And unaccountability is like the name of the game for this government. Like they have been found to be negligent in many cases, like even the Meron catastrophe, where many ultra-Orthodox Jews were killed by complete negligence. And this, like, there was an investigative committee, and that, like, they found, and like, you can look at the findings and say, like, judge them by yourself, but they don't take any accountability for it, and instead they blame the people who conducted the investigation. And I don't think like they don't even bother pointing to why. They just like by virtue of them being who they are, they couldn't possibly have any capacity to judge us, the supreme class of right wingers. So like I see that as much more of a threat.
So why do you think the political apparatus isn't functioning to hold these people accountable?
You could point to it, I think, everywhere in the world in terms of polarization, right? Like who's gonna, and specifically on the right, you said like the right is always more inclined to police itself.
Hmm.
So you rally around the flag, and this is the flag. And I think you could see people like Chazi, for instance, but a lot of people I could talk to on the right, they don't like this politician, they don't like that politician, this one's corrupt. I talked to a guy on the university who's right wing, and he said like about Miri Regev, yeah, I'm like, he's a Likud member, like of the, he pays the party fees to vote in the primaries. It's like, yeah, I don't like her, and I think the police should do its job and put her. It's like the police is controlled by Ben Gvir, who is overreaching clearly, and like you're supporting this system, but yeah, and you're saying, and when I sort of confront them about it, they say like, oh, but elections are why it's okay. And I say like, you have no real separation of powers. Yeah, but it's better because in the political system there's elections, and that sort of is a magic bullet, and it solves everything.
Well, I mean, this is the problem of the Israeli constitution. I mean, supposedly it is based on the British Parliament, right? And so Knesset is supreme.
If Knesset was real and not like a puppet of government, like government is a part of Knesset. If you talk about like reforms that could happen, even with all of the laws of the judicial reform, if there was a complementary strengthening of the Knesset with respect to the government, yeah, I could be for that even. But like that's not what happens. The government, when you have a majority and you have coalitional discipline in the government, then you also have the Knesset, and it has nothing that it can do about it. And in a world with less polarization, you could have that like very loosely held system sort of function, because there are like across the aisle issues that you could legislate around. And there are, different different interests that align between parties that are in the coalition and opposition. And this is how it functioned until, let's say, the late 2010s. But especially since the Netanyahu opposition government, that has stopped. Like his government shot down their own law proposals that had been offered by the Bennett government consistently. And when they were asked about it, they said, like, I think Miyagi famously said, I have no stomach aches on like all of the people that say would suffer from all of this, because we need to take down their government. Like that's it. Like there's they saw it as illegitimate, end of story, and they would use any political means to do it. And when that is the atmosphere, then a majority of 61 to 59 gets you everything you want and nothing for the opponent. And that's like not how the system was not built for that situation. That's the system's pathology. Let's put it that way.
What do you think would happen if they raised the minimum to 10 seats?
So that's always a discussion, right? Like whether you should raise the minimum or lower the minimum. And Yeah, if you raise the minimum, then you have a lot less power for the small
Factories.
parties.
Yeah.
Because when there's a counterintuitive thing where like the bigger parties can do less than the small parties when you have that those small parties that can bring down the government, and the big parties are like, yeah, we have the most seats, but they're not the linchpin. They're not the ones that make or break things.
Yeah.
So you have like these kingmakers, like the ones that are most extreme, get to dominate policy.
Yeah.
Like the other end of that is if you raise the minimum too high, then you get a system that is less representational, right? A lot of and because the Israeli society is so tribal, that makes it hard, right? Like if you have a less tribal society, where, like, in the U.S., to the best of my knowledge, and correct me if I'm way off, I feel like the discussion is political. It's about policy.
It used to be.
Okay.
It used to be 25 years ago. It was.
But it's built on that premise, let's say.
It is, and I think a reason for that is we had first past the post, which means only two political parties.
Mm-hmm.
If I mean, I would like us to have 3 or 4 political parties, but I look at the Israeli Knesset and I'm like, are you kidding me? A party with only 5 seats?
Yeah.
Like, it seems to me 10 is the bare minimum. Like, less than 10, like 12 parties is already way too many.
Okay, but like I'm let's say I'm with you. I'm just saying, like, the specific types of Haredim that currently exist would have a really hard time to have a party that could be in any way like representative. And I
mean,
have
Shas and UTJ together would have 16 seats.
But would they be together, right? Like, that's, to me, like,
if they were forced to, that's the whole point.
maybe they would, but like my concern is, and it may be a moot point. Maybe like the dynamics of the system would force everything to be fine, and like the market forces do their thing. But my concern is, like, if you have a deeply tribal society and you have tribes that are just dramatically underrepresented, like that could have 5 seats and eventually have 1 or less, then the impact of that for society might be detrimental. That's what
I think ultimately a situation like that leads to people actually being less tribal. I think the minimum being so low is what is part of what is causing the tribalism in Israel.
Maybe. I mean, that's a decent point. Like, when you talk about the present, I would want the present to represent the system, the way that things are, but you're saying that the system should be aspirational, right? Like, you should design your political system and force people. If the system existed for the last 50 years, then maybe like the Shas tribe wouldn't exist the way it exists now, and people would have to sort of say,
Shas and UTJ would the Haredim would at least not have 3 different parties.
Yeah, like maybe that's true. Maybe like the way that politics is.
I don't understand what Chazi means. The problem is with the Gush Amuni.
Gush Amuni means the people who are not. It's not necessarily the Haredim. It's like in the government, there's a sort of alliance of people who are traditional and Haredim and right wing and pro like Greater Israel and all of that. That's sort of they made this political notion what they call the Gush Emuni.
Mhm.
They have a lot of extreme differences because you have like very
This
like,
includes Ben Gavir.
I think so. I'm not entirely clear on like where they define the borders of it, but it's a problem that the Tzionut Datit, the settlers who are nationally oriented, they serve in the army, they believe in the state, are under the same umbrella as the Haredim who don't believe in the existence of the state and don't serve in the army, and they have this like strange bedfellows, let's say.
Hmm.
That's what I think Hazi is referring to. Yeah, I think if at least I take it to my view, I think there is something interesting about thinking about politics as aspirational rather than just representational. Because I do think not even just in your view of like maybe the Shas and UTJ would be the same party, but I think like maybe people, a lot of voters for Shas are actually, let's say, just Sephardic, non-Hasidic, non-ultra-Orthodox Jews. And maybe like there would be a sort of different left wing because a lot of the, say, social welfare ideas that appeal to like at the time like Mizrahim would have a different sort of political home that has more of more coherence in it rather than just being identitarian.
Yeah, I mean, I think having such tiny parties, like so many of them, is just, I mean, yeah, I would prefer we had more than two parties. But like once you're looking at more than five, oof.
Yeah. Sorry, just had some messages.
Well, you brought up something I wanted your opinion on. In terms of Greater Israel, I always thought this was fringe of the fringe. I thought this was like less than 2% possibly of Israeli society could ever be thinking, oh yes, we need to expand our borders.
Have you heard of this notion? I think it's a book, When Prophecy Fails.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's how I see it, right?
What do you mean?
That like Israel is not living up to the prophecy, so
they have to double down on it.
Yeah. And I think that's how Avi Sagi, Professor Avi Sagi, is analyzing it. He's saying like you had the 6-Day War, which was like this elation for the more, let's say, apocalyptically oriented messianists. And then you had the Yom Kippur War, which made it much more fervent. Because now, like, you're sort of failing, right? So it must be because you aren't doubling down enough on the prophecy, right? And what
percentage of Israelis would you say have like any shaykhut to something like this, like trying to expand Israel's borders, like I guess at least to take the Suez? I don't know.
So it's hard to point to specific percentages. Like Ben Gvir is definitely that person, but do all of his voters feel that way? I would say all of it, like the majority of his voters would be down for that. I don't know if they're like especially let's say, religious about that notion, but they could be very militaristic about that notion. So that there is a lot of different alignments around it. So the way that the right talks about it is they have the slogan that Israel needs to speak Arabic. And what they mean by that is take the lands of the neighboring Arab countries, because that's the only language that Arabs understand and that Muslims understand, and that aligns very well with Greater Israel people. They're saying like, sure, you can believe this, we're with you, and like their notion is we need to take Greater Israel for the coming of the Messiah, and this is the narrative of 3,000 years, and this is what God wants us to do. So I think like the people who are convinced that this is somehow better for our security would be aligned with the people who think this is a religious calling. And if you ask me, like, combined, how many people would be willing to go for that? Also hard to answer. Like, I would put it this way. This is a story a friend of mine told me. So there's like an Easter, like a Yemen-oriented family, and during the Gaza war, he visits them, and the woman saying like, we should flatten Gaza and all of these things. And he says like, okay, let's say we don't have morals, we kill everyone in Gaza. Let's say it takes 5,000 lives of Israeli soldiers to do that. And he says like, whatever the cost, if this is what needs to be done, whatever the cost. And then he says, okay, let's say it takes the life of your son, right? And he says like, don't talk that way.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, that's sort of the thing. Is like there's a lot of big talk around it, but when it comes to people's own pockets and people's own lives, they sort of sing a different tune. So I don't know, like, how many people are willing to sort of blow up their chest and brag about how we're going to take Greater Israel. I would say easily more than 10%.
Wow.
Like, how many of them are willing to sort of really ideologically commit themselves to that? I don't know.
Yeah,
definitely there are, at least the Elisha Yereds and the ones that are like the Hilltop Youth, and like they're doing it with like the whatever they can while being against the institution or half against the institution, because the institutions are already compromised in many ways. But they would beat up Israeli soldiers and throw rocks at them in order to take more land and hold it. Like that's happening. So there are definitely people who are let's say walking the walk. But I don't know how to estimate those.
Yeah. So I was at the dog park and started talking to this woman, and she had an Israeli accent, and she starts telling me how the United States is fascist and Israel is fascist and it's a Nazi and it's a genocide and da 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 da. And I said I don't agree, and she said, "Oh, it's because you don't know as well as I do," and whatever.
Oh, I love that argument.
Yeah.
From every side of the map, I've had this like, oh, if you had read what I read.
Yeah. So I told her, which I seriously do believe, what bothers me about Israeli society is I do see it becoming more and more Middle Eastern. And she thought I meant, oh, you mean the Mizrahim are having too many kids? I'm like, no, I'm Mizrahi. It's like Israeli society is becoming native to the Middle East.
I think we are.
And so when you said you need to speak Arabic, it's like, yeah, they're learning to speak Arabic.
I think we already are in many ways that people don't understand, and this is something I had like a long time ago discussion about in your server, right? When we talk about like why the border kibbutzes didn't have like rifles, they only had like personal handguns in October 7th, and it's like I said, well, you have the current regime's government, and these people don't vote for them, so they don't get the things they want. It's like, and people think, in terms of European or American bureaucracy, and like, no, you call a guy that who has the power to get things happening, and they get things to happen. And if that guy isn't connected to the reigning power, then it doesn't happen. That's like not European. That is Middle Eastern. Like when I talked to a guy from the Netherlands in a conference I was in, and we were talking. I was telling him about like the judicial coup and everything, and he said like, yeah, but that's surely not constitutional. And I'm like, we don't have a constitution. You can just see his Dutch brain unable to process what that could possibly mean. What is a country without a constitution, right? Like, and but like that's especially for someone like the Dutch. And then he says like he had this hilarious question. It's like, but without a constitution, how do you do long-term planning? And I just like burst out laughing, which is true, because Israel has no long-term planning. Like that's a feature of Israel's politics. Everything is very like present oriented.
Well, I mean, officially, the United Kingdom doesn't have a constitution. Even the Magna Carta, it's not an actual constitution. But yeah, no, I mean, honestly, like I was surprised Yoav kind of agreed with this, but and I was surprised it's as live as it is. But Adin Steinsaltz was advocating for a Sanhedrin as a second house of the Israeli parliament, like an upper house, like a House of Lords. And I thought it was the most ridiculous idea. I still don't see it at all happening, but it's not as ridiculous of an idea as I first thought it was.
I would put it this way, right? I had a discussion about this with a friend. This is very related to what we talked about the left, right? At this point, right, like the left has retreated so much, right? Like we're barely ever mentioning even a constitution. At this point, I would say like even the idea of this Sanhedrin at this point, like I'm just tired, and I think it's not just me, right? Like you're at the point where like you want to try this fucking ridiculous thing. Maybe it's better than having Ben-Gvir in government. Like I don't know what to say to that. I think it's absurd. But is it more absurd than what we have live right now going on? Like you have a literally like convicted felon, multiple felonies in charge of the police, right? What needs to happen further, for this to be a UNESCO or Samuel Beckett play, right? Like it's come to this point. You want the Sanhedrin, like for what? I don't know. I think it would be terrible. I would oppose it, but like, what does my opposition even mean? What does it achieve? I could look at this as I do and say like, from the best capacity that I can tell, it's not just going to be like less for me and more for you. It's going to be hell for everyone.
Mm.
But you don't care what I say, and you think that I'm a part of the corrupt elite class of people behind the scenes, like pulling the strings. So what does it matter, right? Like I would like to have more power if I had any skill in doing politics. I would feel driven to actually do something. Like I feel that that's like something that's burning in me, and like I need to be involved in what's going on where I live, but I don't have the skills. I don't know how to channel that except for going on a YouTube channel of some Jewish Iranian guy from
Los Angeles.
the West, from Los Angeles, and talking about stuff. And this is when and where I was born, so this is the life I get to live, right? Like you don't choose the time and place in history where you get to live your life, and I'll try to make the best of it. That's what I have to say.
I am guessing these are names, Einat Wilf, and I have no idea. El Hadegel? Like, what are these?
So I think, like, I'm not too familiar with Einat Wilf. I know that she's right wing and she wants to root out the idea of Palestinianism. I know that she's, like, let's say, not respected in the left wing circles, if she is who I think she is. But I don't like actually know her views too much. Ella Degel, I think, are one of the new I say new, but it's kind of like there are a lot of them, and they keep springing up, like centrist national movements that are like, oh, let's focus on the things we agree on. Let's think about the strategic. Let's see.
Hakiru et Movile El Hadegel.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that means.
A new generation of Zionism. So I don't know them specifically. I would say most of these things are similar. Like Rivon Revi is also here. Let's stand above the political controversies of left and right. I want a country that's strong, but also peaceful. I want a country that's Jewish, but also liberal. I want a country that, all of these, we're for everything good and against everything bad notions. I don't see any of them really getting traction politically. Like I said, I think it's a part of this 80-80 idea, and it's dominated the Israeli liberal side for decades now, and it's only failing so far. Because one of the things, if we go back to, I think his name is Asaf Sharon, he says, like, you want to push the extremes out. Why aren't you actually fighting the extremes? Why aren't you insisting on, getting Ben Gvir out of the government? Like, instead, it's always just going one step further into the extreme. So I don't know. I don't know these people specifically, but I'm not seeing something especially novel about what they're doing.
Is it normal to have Orech Din as a title like that?
Yeah. In Israel, it's like, I think it's doctor something and Orech Din something, like lawyer,
really?
Whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think in this, from what I see, this one is specifically meant to position itself against the Haredim, which sort of unites between like liberals and maybe religious Zionism, and that maybe that's the niche they're trying to carve.
I mean, I see a lot of women wearing tichels.
Yeah, that's probably religious Zionism.
It's always the women causing problems.
So yeah, I'm not optimistic on any of those movements managing to restrain the polarization and the radicalization that's going on. I think like if that a notion had any prospects, it would have already borne fruit, and it has only gotten more and more radical the more people vote for and support these kinds of let's all be friends movements. I think, by the way, the best way that a country or a political discussion can work is when I actually fight for what I believe is right, and you actually fight for what you believe in right, and there's like opponent processing. There has to be a like an overarching narrative that unites us, so that it doesn't become adversarial processing, and we just try to trample each other.
There have to be rules, and there has to be a willingness to recognize, okay, I lost, and
I think I'm not a fan of Begin as a politician, but whenever Begin lost, and I think this is why he eventually won, whenever Begin lost, what he would famously say is, I will serve the people as best as possible from the opposition. Right? Like that's, like you said, I lost, and having lost, I will pursue still keep fighting within what the system allows me to fight. Netanyahu is the antithesis of this, right? Netanyahu is like, I've lost, the government is illegitimate by virtue of me not being in power, and I will focus everything on making sure that this government does not function, cannot pass laws, and falls as fast as possible. So I agree with you that like there has to have to be rules, and you have to acknowledge that you've lost. I think that politically, like that is a culture that like has been deteriorated from one specific origin in Israel.
Yoav agrees with you, but thinks you're blaming the wrong side. We will not have normal elections, Kazi, I'm afraid. The judges are already on the case.
So that's, yeah. I'm not sure I'm best fit to confront Yoav. Times I think it might become too, I don't know.
I mean, if our two secular Jews from North Tel Aviv can't agree, who can?
Not from North Tel Aviv.
Oh, sorry. He's from North Tel Aviv. What? You're from South Tel Aviv?
I'm not. Oh, right. Because there's only one city where secular people can live. I mean, maybe soon that would be the case. Maybe you're just like seeing the future better than I. Yeah, I mean, if the notion is true, and like the judges and the left are controlling everything, and the government really doesn't have responsibility, not for October 7th and not for their failing.
Let me be more clear. I personally, at least for me, it's not a matter of, I mean, I call Aaron Barak Melech Israel. Not that I believe he's actually the Melech of Israel and gets to say everything that goes, but I think he has authority that he doesn't deserve.
First of all, I think you mean past tense, right? Because he's retired for many years, right? Or do you think Barak still controls things behind the scenes?
Yeah.
I highly doubt that. Why would Yitzhak Amit like just sit with Aaron Barak telling him like, okay, here's what you do. Like
It's
like even
not,
even
it's
if
not
even if I
that-
go with
it's
you,
not
I'd be
that transactional. It's not that, like causal. It's more along the lines of there's a culture, there's an aristocracy, there's a tribe that, and frankly, I mean, that's what I think of Haaretz, right? It's like, okay, if Haaretz poof went out of existence and tomorrow had to be rebuilt out of its own resources, nobody would have heard of it. Like nobody would read it. It would not exist. But it exists because it has this vestigial authority that like in a strange way, I think like it's the conservatives holding on to their regime when, like, yeah, in 30, 40 years, I think Haaretz could go bankrupt any time from now to 30 years from tomorrow.
yeah.
But at the same time, in the United States, like whenever anybody on the left wants to say anything, well, Haaretz said it.
I think like there's, you're right about it, but I think it's true to many institutions in terms of like Haaretz is living, I think Peterson said, in the corpse of their ancestors, right? Like, and I think like that's generally true, and I think Haaretz has a very like fine legacy. I don't mean it like just from sort of the aura that it has, because if you're a journalistic body, all right, then or a journalistic organization, then you live on your like reliability. Like how good is your reporting? How effective is your investigative reporting? What can you find there? And I don't think Haaretz is anywhere near being a proper news outlet today, but you live on the remains of your glory days. Like when you see someone like Gidon Levy actually doing an interview with Jackson Hinkle, like, yeah, that would not be something that any like body could build itself. None of what they're doing today would generate the sort of aura that they already have from the past. But I don't see it in the same way of sort of the purely identitarian element of it. I think
as long as I have been aware of Haaretz, which is 1995, so 30 years, it's been a left-wing rag.
I mean, it's always been left-wing. I'm not like that. I'm not denying
There's
that.
a difference between being left-wing and being a left-wing rag.
So what do you mean?
So a respectable left-wing newspaper or magazine is first and foremost most critical of itself and the left.
Itself, you mean the newspaper or the left?
Yes, both.
Okay.
And it's informing its population both about what is out, like the people who read it should be getting information that is truthful about the people who would not read it. And more than anything, it should be actually revelatory about what's going on, right? So I would expect, for example, today, a Haaretz that's worthy of being a leading newspaper of the left would be digging into Ehud Barak and Epstein, right? And I don't know if they are. I really genuinely don't know, but I certainly don't expect it of them.
Yeah, I don't know specifically because I haven't, I'm not reading any news outlet. Like Arts as well, I told you, for a long time. It has been at best boring and in many cases just outright misleading.
So
I can tell you that
that's the Jordan Peterson criterion for being ideologically possessed. If it's ever surprising, and never in my life has a headline in Haaretz surprised me in a good way. Like I've been surprised, as in, oh my God, my expectations for you were low, and you beat them. Like when I will never forget the article they had about like the Chabad shliach who was a threat to Israeli culture, right? Because he was coming after their kids, making them put on tefillin, right? It was like, oh my God, like. I'm surprised you had that take, but I'm not surprised you had that take, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I've never been surprised in terms of, oh, here is Haaretz actually informing its readers about Haredim or, you know, the religious or the right, or in terms of it's actually being genuinely reflective of its where it is and what it's doing.
I would say in my view, like you say, you started in 1995. I think when you look at like from there on, there were very few times where the left was in power. And every single time before that, and in the few times after that, the left was in power, it was extremely critical of the left because they're in power. Like the way that Haaretz sees itself, and I think in many ways the left sees itself, and you could say this about like satire TV programs, which could also fall into being like ideologically possessed. Their role, the way they see themselves, and self-reportedly, they need to be like the mirror held in front of power, wherever that power may be. Right?
Yes, but do they always imagine that they themselves are not in power, even when they are? That's what bothers me.
So, like I said, I think when you look at Haaretz, when the left was in the government, again, this is from me, like, I didn't actually read Haaretz from before I was born, right? I didn't do that sort of research.
Yeah.
So this is like my impression.
Yeah.
My sense is like, and this is common for the left. Like when Ehud Barak was in power, they were very critical of Ehud Barak. And you could say, like maybe the framing of that was to say like, he's in power, but he's not really left. He's not like our guy or something of that sort, right? But the sense is, right, whoever's in power, Arts is going to criticize them, and they're going to criticize them from a left-wing view. of them, right? Like they will be more left than whoever is in power. That's sort of their niche in the world. So my sense is like within that framing, they have shown some like journalistic prowess, like in integrity in articles that I did read when I was a teenager, let's say, compared to like Israel Hayom that came out at the same time, which I could read. And like the level of manipulation, I remember like a friend when I was in the army brought me like an article, and he said like, look, this is very interesting. I like, had to circle out all of the ways in which the article is like vague and implicitly telling you something that they can't actually back up with facts, and all of these things. And the way that Haaretz was written was just like, you could say, maybe as ideological as Israel Hayom, which was a newspaper founded by Sheldon Adelson to promote right-wing notions, but it was like it was higher quality journalism generally in Haaretz, pursuing, let's say, the same ideology. Like it's definitely oriented to the left. I don't think it's really hiding it. I think in recent years, one of the things that has actually made the paper a lot worse is that they also hire a lot of fig leaves, right? So they get articles by people like Naved Romi and other like obscure names that are Israeli right, and you have like all these leftist titles on the front page, and then one or two from just very untalented right-wing writers, and that they're like
the New York Times does the exact same thing. The right wingers Ross Douthat is surprisingly good, but generally the Republicans who write for their punching bags, they're just there to be beat up on.
Maybe they're punching bags. Maybe this is part of their way of like, we need more voices to be heard, because I think like it's not like they have a lot of selection, like self-respecting or let's say not even self-respecting, like journalists that have a following of the deep right in Israel would be criticized for ever working with Haaretz, right? Like it's not like they can have their pick in that sense.
Really?
From the deep right? Yeah.
See, I'm thinking, if the New York Times wanted Ben Shapiro to write a column for them, he would, but they would never hire him.
Yeah, and I think like I don't think Haaretz wants those journalists. I'm just saying like it's a more complicated system, because and like they would also lose a lot of readers, maybe also the New York Times, but also Haaretz, because these, like, if you have journalists who see them as like illegitimate, that think that they should be illegal, and those are their claims, like that arts should be illegal, then I think it's really stupid for Haaretz to actually have them write a piece for them. And this is like they had on the TV news, right? Like there's this right-wing activist, Mordechai David. He's been harassing one of the journalists, Lucy Arish. So she's Arabic, and she said she hopes that Arabs would vote in masses in the coming elections. That pissed off some right-wingers. And then they had him come on the show to speak his thing while he's harassing, another journalist at her home.
What do you mean harassing? Like
coming to her home and like physically threatening to her and her husband. So like I don't think that's. By the way, so I need to probably go because I hear the
Sorry.
alert. So
Yeah. Stay
yeah,
safe.
before we need to sleep.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Stay safe. Be well.
Thanks.
Good night, people.
رضا پهلوی وارث تاج ایران، انتظارمون روز شاهیته، سرفرازیمون پادشاهیته. زن زندگی آزادی، مرد میهن آبادی، جاوید شاه، جاوید شاه. این ملت آزادی میخواد، به جای غم شادی میخواد، ایران آزاد شکوه دیرین میخواد. زن زندگی آزادی، مرد میهن آبادی، جاوید شاه، جاوید شاه. مردم ایران بازگشت تو را از خود میخوان، ایران آزاد میشه، شاه برمیگرده، این آخرین نبرده، پهلوی برمیگرده.
زن زندگی آزادی، مرد میهن آبادی،
جاوید شاه، جاوید شاه.
این آخرین نبرد، پهلوی برمیگرده.
جاوید شاه،
جاوید شاه.
پهلوی برمیگرده.
جاوید